Hi YouTube, this is Darkon633. We're going to take a look at the Deluxe Power Rangers Ninja Steel Megazord. Now, out of all the Megazords I've gotten over the years, ever since the Neo Saban era has started, this particular release had me the most contemplating out of which release I was going to get. It's understandable that the Bandai America release may not always be as good as the Japanese release, but this time around it was kind of really hard to say since both Megazords have two different varying price points. And it's really hard to decide, especially since I wasn't even going to get all of the Ninja's mecha or the Ninja Steel mecha to begin with, since I only wanted some of the combinations. This sort of also gave me a little bit of problems since there was a lot of varying different opinions about the Bandai America Megazord, and not just by the looks of it, but the overall quality and design when people finally got it in hand. I decided to finally spring for the Bandai America release since it was on sale once again on ToysRUs.com for about the $28-29 price once the taxes applied, and I decided instead of spending like the $50 or so that the Japanese release was for right now, I decided that the Bandai America release was decent enough to get, especially with the Lion Fortress coming out eventually. Anyways, we're going to take a look at the box first. The figure is outside of the box, but we're going to quickly look at the box itself. The box is in the standard kind of style of the Megazord boxes we've gotten over the years. Obviously, since it is Power Rangers Ninja Steel, the box itself style is going to be different. It has the picture of the Ninja Steel Red Ranger up here. The Attack Shuriken has the logo on the side and pretty much states that it comes with the 5 Zords. We have a picture of the suit design on the side here. And on the back it shows the formations that it can do and basically some of the features you get when combining with the vehicles and a few other things. The only thing, as many fans have already pointed out, the Dragon mode is completely absent from the box and in the instructions, which is very strange, but at least it can actually do that. Anyways, we'll now take a look at the individual Zords first. And now we're going to look at all the individual Zords. In terms of functionality, most of the design is mostly intact. There's a few differences here and there, and some major differences. For example, the Nitro Zord versus the Dump Maru, the Dragon and Dragon Maru, and so on. And obviously the others have a few changes here and there, but nowhere near as drastic as these two right here. Obviously, a lot of paint differences aside, mostly of the designs are still intact, and I think they did a pretty decent job for what they can do. Another difference is that the Shuriken itself, while it's not near the Japanese release in any form, at least it's made of a hard plastic, unlike the releases with the Morpher, the Sword, and basically any of the standard roleplay Shurikens. And also because of that, since this is a different design, it cannot work with any of the roleplay in the line in general. Just as a comparison, here's the actual Megazord helmet Shuriken here, next to just a Bandai Japan Ninninger Shuriken. There's a huge difference between the two designs. Obviously, this one had a removable plate. It did have electronics. It have the pull tab in there so that the batteries don't go on. And this piece can fold down like this release, so at least they allowed you to do that. One thing is that even though this isn't the same Shuriken, a lot of the design is missing from this since it is a solid piece, but overall it's still pretty good, I guess, for what it does, and it does look a lot better on the Megazord when actually combined. Anyways, we'll now run through each of the Zords. So first we're going to take a look at the Red Ranger's Robozord, or the Red Robozord, should I say. In terms of actual design, it's pretty close to what we've seen in the Japanese release and so on, and for Shinobi Maru in general. The paint is missing here and there. It is missing some painted details on the legs and the feet and so on, but the overall design is still intact. The articulation, exact same thing as we see with the Deluxe Japanese version of Shinobi Maru. The head can turn 360, but it's really tight there. The shoulders, while not as tight, still have some give, so that's good that it is still tight there. It does have a double joint up here and another joint down there for transformation, but that's about it what you're going to get there. As a comparison, here is the Robo Red Zord, next to just a standard 5-inch figure in the line. So it is a little bit on the small side, and it does have some bounce issues due to how small his feet are, but it does do what it needs to do, especially in the combinations. So we're just going to take that to the back and move on to the next Zord. We're just going to go in no specific order. We're just going to take a look at the Dragon next. The Dragon is one of the most drastic changes, even more than the actual Nitro Sword itself. The overall design is still pretty close to the Japanese release, but the Japanese release has an actual openable mouth for the dragon. The legs are also molded different, since this piece cannot be hidden, so he always has a fist right there, and it's a very awkward design. And even how the wings and the tail connects is different on this release. Articulation-wise, you pretty much only got the articulation in the arms. And this is kind of an articulation point, but that's mainly towards transformation. So that's not really so much as an articulation point there. Next, we're going to take a look at the Megazord. The Megazord is pretty close in some manner, but overall it's still quite different to the Japanese release. Some of the major differences include obviously the missing paint, how this entire formation is different, since the Japanese release is able to hide away the fist, and once again it is a solid piece here. It did have the front of the dump truck there, and while that is very distracting and annoying, that piece was just really there for transformation and the look of a dump truck. So to be perfectly honest, I'm not really too mad that it's gone, only because it could barely do anything in Japan. If it actually was something that you could actually move, then I would have been a little bit more annoyed that it was missing. But the overall sense, it's not too bad, especially if you're going to display it in Megazord mode anyway. The wheels are of a hard plastic and can roll pretty decently. And other than that, and the Zord builder ports over, the only other major difference that this release has is this compartment right here. It's not something that's on the Japanese release, since it is actually attached, if you remember correctly, to the train, rather than the train attaching to that component. So that's one of the major differences there. And while this gimmick itself is pretty close to the Japanese release and does the same function in Megazord mode, these pieces are separated on both the suit and the Japanese release, but it is a solid piece, making it a little bit more sturdier and a little less floppy because of that, in my opinion, for what I can tell. These pieces are still articulated, so that you can put the hands inside the Megazord. Its hands, when you attach the Robo-Red Zord's hands into it. So it does maintain most of the same features. We're going to take a look at the train next. The train is another difference, but the overall, just looking at it, it's not too different. The main difference is that the actual way that it combines is only via a very small peg, and that's really annoying and it's terrible. I really do not like how that exact formation is like, and they could have done a better job finding a way to actually connect the two pieces together. So we're just going to reattach the piece that popped off. This is actually the first time it's ever popped off on me, so that's weird that it actually happened now during the review. And it pretty much attaches like that, and it's not even articulated, since the way that it does combine, it does kind of hold it pretty tightly. So at least it's got that going for it. And what I mean tightly is that it can hold this together, but it doesn't have enough attachment so that it actually doesn't allow it to flop up from up there. Other than that, the overall design is still mostly intact. It's still missing a lot of paint, but that's about it. It still kind of looks like the train. And then for the Kodiak Zord, well, the Japanese release really wasn't that much of a big deal anyway. From what I could tell, the legs were articulated in the Japanese release, but in this version it is a solid piece. The head can still move up and down due to transformation and so on, but other than the missing paint, it's still mostly intact of the same Zord. So now we're just going to quickly go on to the transformation, which is pretty simple, but it is a little bit different to the Japanese release, since you actually have a little less steps, and the way that the legs form is quite different. So we're going to quickly go on there first. First, what we're going to do is turn these into the legs. So we got one leg and a second leg. We're going to take this and take this off to the side for now. We're going to open this compartment here by pulling the arm off. We're going to collapse the wheels. And that's it for the transformation of the actual limb. We're just going to attach the limb onto the body and snaps into place like this. And we're going to attach the legs onto the Megazord. And it's a little bit tight and kind of hard to pull on, but after using it a couple times, it does make it a little bit easier to attach it. So we got that going on. We're going to attach the dog by just turning the head and just plugging it in. There isn't a whole lot to do with the actual Kodiak Sword on its own. And then for the dragon, we're just going to split this entire piece apart, since these will form the weapons. Take these off to the side temporarily. It doesn't really matter what you do with the arms, but in the instructions and the overall design, the arms kind of stick upwards like that. And that's it. Unfortunately, there's still no way to hide the fist, so you're pretty much stuck with that there. And we're just going to snap that together. We're going to pull this compartment down so that it forms the leg rest of the throne mode. We're going to take the actual Robo-Redzord and put him into a somewhat sitting position. We're going to pull the arms up so that we can get these into position onto the handles. But first, we're going to plug this into the actual chest compartment. It snaps in place. And you kind of need to turn these so that they're in a particular position so that both hands can actually fully hold onto it. Otherwise, they're going to start sliding up like this. It's a little bit tricky at times to actually attach these, but once you get a hold of it, it does make it a lot easier. And we almost got the full combination. What we're going to do next is take the helmet, turn this like that, and plug it in. So it looks like this. And now we're going to change gears so that we can have a full-on look of the Megazord fully combined. So there we have the Megazord fully combined. What we're going to do is just take the tail and it will form the sword. So we're just going to plug it onto this side here. You can actually plug it onto either side, but since the shield can only form onto his left arm, it's better off just keeping the sword on that end. What you're going to do is make sure that these pegs are like this, and it'll peg onto little holes that are on the legs of the dragon. And this is where it's another major change, since the Japanese release actually had a different formation of how the wings formed in general, so that it actually formed an actual shield, and it actually fully closed off with the wing pieces attaching together. In the American release, it is just a solid piece, and while it looks a little distracting, to be perfectly honest, it's not really too bad in my opinion. I'm not as finicky when it comes to the releases of the Sentai Mecha, since I really do like the look of the Megazord, and since it does maintain most of the design, especially if you're just going to display it, it's really not the worst. As mentioned earlier, the Shuriken on the head looks a lot better than the Japanese release, since they no longer needed to maintain the roleplay aspect of the Shuriken itself. It's a lot smaller, making it pretty close to the suit compared to the Japanese release. For articulation, the shoulders allow 360 movement on both sides. It does actually have some leg joints, and that's really nice. And that's mainly because this is used for the formations later on. It does have a knee joint, since this will be actually sitting in Lion How or the Fortress later on in the main combination. And it's nice to actually see articulation in general for the Megazord. Obviously, you're not going to get a whole lot of use of the articulation because of how limited just the way the design is. And it's a little bit top-heavy, which causes it to kind of shake a bit, but it's not too bad. So overall, I still think Bandai America did a pretty decent job for what they needed to do, even if it is a little limited. But it's definitely nowhere near as limited as some of the other previous releases. We're going to quickly go into the Dragon mode. What we're going to do is take the sword out, take out the shield, and we're just going to disassemble the entire component up here. So we're going to remove the helmet, take out the Robo-Redzord, or Redbot. It's a little bit tricky to actually pull him out. It's easier to actually plug him in, but to actually pull him out is a bit troublesome, but it's not too bad. So there we go. We're going to take this, and it actually transfers the exact same way as well into the arm mode as the Japanese release. You actually do need to turn the head. It's a little bit tricky because the head is on a pretty tight joint. But other than that, it does work what it needs to do. You're going to turn this around, and also in the instructions and the suit, etc., the hands do fold upwards like this. We're going to take the dragon, pull it off, replace it with this arm, and it's a little bit tricky to put on because for some reason this entire component is a much tighter grip than the dragon. Do need to kind of play around like this a bit just to plug it in. There we go. And snap it into place. And we're going to then leave it like this. We're going to take the dragon, and you don't need to do a whole lot there. You're just going to unpeg the body like this, and we're going to plug the dragon in the same way we plugged in the Robo-Redzord. So there we go. And then, since it is fully in place, we're going to turn the legs so that it's a kind of in a sitting position, but it's a little bit of a slant rather than a sitting position. So it looks like this. Turn the arms on both sides so that it faces forward. And this is where it's another change to the Japanese release, just in the formation. The wing will actually just plug onto the back like this. On the Japanese release, there were two separate pieces, once again, that allowed you to attach it to both sides. So this isn't show accurate, but at least the toy can actually do this. And you just plug it on. So it looks like this. And then to finish the formation, we're just going to plug in the tail. And there we have the Ninja Steel Megazord Dragon Mode. So it's cool that it actually has this mode, even if it's not promoted on the boxes. It is promoted in some other official photos, like the ones on BBTS and so on, but in on its own, it's not actually promoted in any of the Bandai America actual product images on it, for like official social media, etc. We're gonna just quickly plug in the hands into the handles to make it easier. And overall, I guess it kind of looks like a dragon. Really, the fault of the design, I do not take fault so much on Bandai America's part, rather than the actual design of the mecha in general, since the mecha in general wasn't the most coherent to begin with, and the dragon mode, even in the Japanese release, was still pretty laughable. Articulation is the exact same thing we've seen with the Megazord mode, but because of how the dragon is usually like, you're not going to get a whole lot more in this mode, if not at all, because he's pretty much in a standing position like this, and it's pretty much stuck like that. Another major change is that on the Japanese release, the helmet was able to attach onto the Dragonzord's head, and while that is show accurate, I think they look really stupid overall because of how big the shurikens were. So the overall design, I'm really okay that that is omitted, even if it's not show accurate. So overall, that pretty much covers what I think about the Ninja Steel Megazord. The Megazord itself is definitely not perfect, but it's not full-on awful, like what I've seen a lot of fans have already stated about this Megazord. So I say if you're a fan of Ninja Steel, or I guess Ninninger, this is a decent release to get a hold of. If you're a Japanese purist or just want something that looks the best, then go with the Japanese release if you're willing to spend the extra cash just to get one of your liking. But overall, I think this does the job pretty decently, and the only thing I fault Bandai America for is the way still that they released the individual Otominin, but since I'm going to be skipping most of them anyway, I'm okay that for what it is, since it's nothing that can be avoided at this point. Hopefully the other Otominin, which I doubt at this point because I'm already seeing with the Rumble Tusk, will be released in an easier formation later, but for now, I say this is worth it if you want to go on a budget in the design, since it's definitely not the worst design I've seen in Megazords in general. Anyways, please comment, subscribe, and check out Hero Club and Hirotaku. Also check out my Twitter under DarkOn633, and don't forget to check down the other channels down below. Please check the little bell at the bottom of the screen in order to see my content go up as soon as possible, and I'll be back with more Power Rangers reviews and more. But for now, I'll be seeing you later, YouTube. Bye.